The whole thing has felt like this big dream come true. You know, just getting to go on this journey with the role of a lifetime. You know, I've been acting for a long time, and I had so many years of just needing to learn. You know, and I had you know, many years where I kind of thought I was behind or something because I'd compare myself to other people. I'd look at Leo's career, I'd look at somebody else, and but then you just realize that you're on your own path, and if you you know, if you're not ready for it, then it makes you have to go back to the drawing board and learn and grow. And so now I'm at this place where I've gone on such a long journey with this film. I mean, this has been a part of my life for, I think it's over 3 years. It might be 4 years now.
Well, I was gonna say, like, this, half joking but kind of serious. Like, this was almost like, looked like it was never gonna happen. You know, because, you know, it had been in production pre-production forever. And I know Baz has spoken a lot about you saying that you're gonna stay and wait this process out. How? I mean, I guess what we put on the surface is different than what we feel inside. Did you feel like you were ever going to get back to shooting? Did you think it was going to come back?
You know, when I look back at it, I really, it may have been delusional, but I can be a delusional person, I think. Yeah. You know, I felt that way even before I got the part where before I even had an audition, I treated it like the role was mine, you know, and I just worked as hard as I possibly could at that point. But then when we shut down, and, you know, initially we thought we'll shut down for 2 weeks, and then we'll come back, and then that became a month, and then it became 6 months. And there was that time where Baz took me to dinner, and he said, you know, I think you need to fly back to the States, and the movie may not happen.
Do you remember what you were eating at that dinner?
I remember we went to this restaurant called Rickshaw's. That was one of our favorite restaurants on the Gold Coast, and they had these sandwiches there called bug rolls. The Morton Bay bugs. They made these like fried sandwiches, and they were delicious. And so we were eating those, and I said, you know, I'm not going to go back, and so it meant that I had to rent an apartment myself, and because basically all the corporate cards got shut down, so they couldn't even pay for my apartment or anything, and so I just said, you know, I'm just going to move to Australia essentially, because I knew that if I came back here that I'd lose the momentum that I had, and so I don't think I ever kind of let it not be an option. I thought if I stay, the film has to get made eventually, you know, and even if it's a year from now, and so I tried to just see whatever positive I could, and I just treated it like my time where I could double down and you know, not have anybody knocking at the door, and just prep, you know, for 6 months. And but yeah, looking back, I mean, there were so many times that the film almost went away, you know, and we had flooding at the studio at one point before COVID even, and you know, there was so many moments where you were thinking, oh, things are against us right now. It felt apocalyptic, but then that's why now at this point, not only this time where, you know, we're being recognized by our peers, and that just feels incredible, but the reception of the fans, and the fact that people have resonated with the film in the way they have, because you never know how a movie's going to be received, and so it feels really amazing.
My favorite scene of the movie, not one of the favorite scene of the movie, and I always call this the scene that proves it, is Unchained Melody.
Oh, wow,
At the end, I always say that's this, like, I look for it in a movie. I look for the scene that, like, I feel either encapsulates the movie, or it's where the actor really gives everything that, like, everything in the movie is built to this singular moment, and it's both in that scene. It's everything that Elvis is about, and everything that you're about as an actor. And I wanted you to talk about getting in that headspace for that scene, because it really is you leaving. I call it emptying the arsenal. Everything that's in your acting pockets gets thrown out. You're like, this is all I got. Talk about getting in that space.
Well, that moment. You know, that's one of those bits of footage that never ceases to break my heart. Because when you watch Elvis sing Unchained Melody, and you know that he's not going to be around much longer, and he can hardly speak at that point. I mean, he's gasping for breath and hardly able to get a full sentence out. But then he starts singing, and that operatic, incredibly powerful, emotional voice comes out. And then there's those moments where he smiles out at the audience, and you see that little boy in him. You see that desire for the love of the audience, and you see his love of his mother, and you see so much wrapped up in that one performance.
That old voice rang out, and he sang with all his life.
Oh, my love, my darling, I hungered for your touch a long time.
And so I've watched it countless times and studied it so much, and it also was the first tape that I sent to Baz, was me singing that song, and I had no idea that it was going to be that moment in the film, and so it meant a lot to me, and it also, filming it, we have this, body adjustment suit, as Catherine Martin calls it. We don't call them fat suits, but they yeah. And
you did not put on weight for this role. I see. You didn't start.
I did in the
5,000
beginning. Especially when I was trying to get the part before it was Baz really welcomed me on the journey when we were trying to figure out if I could play older Elvis. Yeah. So my agent actually told me, he said, you gotta, they don't know if you can play older Elvis, so I think you need to gain some weight. And so I'd heard that Ryan Gosling, when he was going to do Lovely Bones, had microwaved Häagen-Dazs and would drink it. So I started doing that. I would go get 24 donuts, and I'd eat them all, and I really started to pack on some pounds. Yeah. And
that's what I'm doing for my next role too. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun for a week or so, and then you feel awful with yourself. But so I did that for a while, and we were also planning on shooting chronologically in the beginning. Oh, okay. That quickly went out the window, and then especially with COVID, it was just impossible. So I was gonna. That was another one of the tricky aspects of the film, was Elvis changed so much from the time he was 19 to 42, and that's the age that I was playing him. And one day we'd be in 1974, and the next day we'd be in 1956, and so you gotta, be able to switch back and forth vocally and physically and everything. Initially I thought we could probably take a break halfway through. I can gain the weight for the later stuff, and then we'll go and do that. I think I've talked a lot about how much Raging Bull meant to me, and so that idea of kind of being able to do that has always been a challenge that I wanted to go after, but just with the way that we shot it, we weren't able to do that, so we had to use different physical things.
I mean, next time, right?
Next time. You and I can melt some Häagen-Dazs together.
You're going to be in Masters of the Air, Apple TV Plus drama with Callum Turner and fellow Oscar nominee Barry Keoghan. You guys are going to be together at the Oscar nominee luncheon. What can you tell us about it, and how much fun was it?
That was a fun job. I was about a week out after filming Elvis, and then flew to London and started boot camp for that, and then went into filming. So it was a time where I was still trying to kind of come back to reality. I'd been living in this other world for a while, and so it was a nice. I had Thanksgiving with Tom Hanks in Australia, and we were eating dinner, and he said, "What are you going to do when you finish this?" I said, "I don't know," and he said, "I think you should probably try to find a job to go right into, because otherwise you may really sink into a depression." He said, "You've been occupying all of yourself with this one thing, and I think it would be good for you to just jump right into something else." And then we started talking. He said, "I actually got this show I'm producing that you could come over and do," and that was this show. And I was a big fan of Band of Brothers and the Pacific, and so it had always been a dream of mine to be a part of something like that, and a big ensemble show, and so. Yeah, it was a great time, and Callum is now like a brother to me, and Barry, I just love him to death. We had a great time out there, and Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that one.
This process obviously was Elvis was in you. Like he was in you. He lived within you. He's still here with you. You know, and a lot of people are watching, and you're a good symbol of hope for people who love art to stay with it as long as possible. Like wait it out. You'll get that moment to shine from your voice, from your heart. What's your message to people that are out there? And you know, I know we're all shedding the Elvis voice now, but from Austin Butler, what do you want people to know about this?
About that, I mean, it truly is. I love actors. I love acting. I love storytelling. I feel so lucky and fortunate that I've been able to work. That I've been able to work with the people that I've been able to, and but I had many times where I didn't work, and many months, you know, 8 months at a time where I just wouldn't book anything, and that can break your spirit at times, and it can make you question if this is meant for you, and then that voice inside your head that tells you you're not good enough, or you're incapable of the type of work that you admire. That voice starts, you know, getting louder and louder in your head. And the thing that I could talk from many angles on this, but one is that voice, I think, is there in all of us, and it was always going to be there. I remember Mark Rylance saying, he said, if I could tell actors one thing, it would be, you are enough. And when I met Mark, I said, you know, that meant a lot to me hearing you say that. And he said, isn't that a hard thing to realize, that you are enough? Because you constantly are comparing yourself to other people, and especially in this day and age where, with social media and with this constant comparison of, you know, this person has that, or this person's doing that, and I did that a lot. And like I said in the beginning of this, we're all on our own journey, and my thing is, you know, just as much as you can, stay away from the noise. You know, stay away from all those other things that aren't actually the work, all the outcome-based ideas. An outcome could even be getting the job. You know, it's if instead you're there to do a job, like I think Bryan Cranston in that great, you know, Q&A or whatever he gave, he talked about that, and that really stuck with me, was the idea that just focus on doing the job. You know, even right now, that's why I was saying you're objectifying it. I'm talking about the process, but it's still a mystery. I don't fully understand. You know, every time you have to go back to the drawing board, every time you're going, I don't feel like I'm enough. I don't know if I'm the right guy for the job. And so it's a constant process of trying to, one, kind of get used to that voice of fear and realize it's always going to be there, and you can sort of welcome it and go, you know, there you are, and I see you, and kind of just welcome that voice on the ride with you, and realize that it's just a form of energy that you can transfer. But then also just take your mind off the idea of like the outcome of whether it's getting the job or it's the box office or it's what the critics are going to say or anything. That's really hard. I mean, this is easy to say, it's hard to do, and but it's for me, like the big things that changed my whole career were going to New York and doing that play with Denzel, because you're only as good as you are that night. You can't rest on what the New York Times said or what the New Yorker said or what, you know, the person last night at the show said to you afterward. If you're not present in that moment doing your best work, then you're letting all those people in the theater down. And you have to find new life every night. So that shifted me a lot as far as just going, just try to do the best work you possibly can and focus on how do you get better. And if that's the fuel that is taking you, then whether you're just doing a scene in an acting class or you're doing a play, you know, in some black box theater, or you're on Broadway, or you're doing a movie, or whatever that thing is, then it's about that moment of truth. And then that moment can be fulfilling in and of itself. And that's why I love watching painters or, you know, people who are creating something with their hands, because it's the process that's the fulfilling thing, rather than the outcome. So I wish everybody the best.